We waited a little longer to get started this morning because of the road closed, and I think a few people have taken a long detour. Most people who are supposed to be here to educate you are here, except for one. But what we might do is start very soon, and we're going to start here with a presentation from Ken Harrison, who works and runs the cattle here on this property, and his family has been here for, where is Ken? How many generations?
Since 73.
Since 73, 1973. And today's whole goal is to teach people more about bobwhite quail, but specifically management and habitat management and wild quail biology. My name's Raoul Boughton. I'm from the University of Florida, and I'm at the Range Cattle Research Center, which is sort of a stone's throw to the north of here. Give you a little bit of background on myself. I'm an ornithologist. I did my first degree in Australia, and that degree was on environmental resource biology. I then worked for an organisation known as the Royal Australasian Ornithologists Union, and I ran a bird observatory for 7 years there. And in that place I managed actually parrots. Interestingly, in Australia there's not a lot of game management. We don't shoot a lot of things anymore. Probably should, because game management and hunters have actually provided extensive resources for conservation efforts in the US, and it's something that could be really well applied to some of the things I saw in Australia. And that's an important thing that I didn't recognise before I came to the US. So things like Ducks Unlimited and the Turkey Federation and even bobwhite, pretty interesting way of approaching conservation. Anyway, I came here and I worked on Florida scrub jays at Archbold Biological Station for many years, and I've been associated with fire management in these habitats for 20 years as well. Excuse me. About 5 years ago, I came to the Range Cattle Research Center, and my job is to work with ranchers to encourage wildlife. That's my whole mandate. That's what I do. And it's not just game wildlife, it's all wildlife. So if you want to know anything about any species of animal out here, please ask me. And I'm going to tell you lots about other species of animals and other species of bird out here that you may not know about while we go around. Alright, so today you're all here to come and learn more about bobwhite quail. Alright? If you have one of these little booklets, or you had one before, there is an agenda inside. You don't need to necessarily get it out. There'll be an agenda, there's a couple of fact sheets, there's some descriptions of talks that we'll do in the afternoon. But this morning's goal is to actually take you around the Buzzard Roost. So this area is known as the Buzzard Roost. It's owned by the Sharp family. Ken's going to talk about it in just a few minutes to give you an idea of what they do here to manage quail. We'll be doing about a 2.5 hour to 3 hour truck tour through all wild habitat here, flatwoods, prairie, a little bit of oak hammock, and we're going to stop at a number of places and talk quail. All right. Today would not have been possible without IFAS Extension Services, and I can't remember how many counties we're representing here, but it's quite a few. Six counties have helped out to pull this together. And today we also had a number of sponsors that helped make this day possible. I want to thank Quail Creek Plantation, Kurt Pinkerton, Attorney at Law, the Quail Forever Habitat Organization, and Maybury Carlton Ranch. So thank you very much. And there is a door prize which you all want to be involved in. And the door prize is drawn at the end of the day, which means you can't leave. You understand? All right. Yeah, it's a good. I've been told it's a good door prize. All right. So the day will end. We'll do our tour here. We'll then transfer to the Range Cattle Research Center, which is just a little north here. And when we finish the tour, if you want to know the quickest way to get there, we will tell you. And we're going to have lunch. Going to eat some quail. It's a good thing to eat. That's probably a first at the Range Cattle Research Centre. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, we're not allowed to eat birds there. I'm not sure why, but and in the afternoon we're going to have about a 2-hour session on talks, and you'll be able to escape probably around 3:30. Right, so with that, I'd like to introduce Ken Harrison and Robert King, who does the quail management here, and they're going to explain a little bit of history of the ranch and what they do to manage quail here. And when you get out there, you'll see how many quail are hopefully here today. All yours, Ken.
Well, thank you. Welcome to all of you. First, I'll say that I'm just an old country boy that grew up here pretty close, about 10 miles across the woods from here. And we run the cattle on the place. That's our connection here. I'd like to introduce Robert King. Robert works for the Sharp family and has been here several years now, and his dad was here a long time before that. Robert, you want to say a few words?
Well, I'm Robert King, and in behalf of the Sharp family, they want to welcome everybody here today. Hope you have a good time. This is a 7,000-acre quail hunting ranch, and probably the most unique thing about this ranch is it's always had a feed program. My dad managed this ranch for 39 years, and we've always managed to keep a feed program going, and that's probably the most unique thing you'll find today. This is our burn map. We burn all the green areas in one year and then come back in the orange areas the next year, and we'll talk more about that, or the experts will, on how important that is. But this is our map. This is our covey counts and our burn map as well. So if anybody's got any questions, this is our truck over here that we spread the feed. We put out 16,000 pounds of milo every month to keep the game here. So I've done everything I could to get them gathered up for you today. Hope you enjoy yourself. If you haven't signed the release form, need to make sure everybody signs the release form, and enjoy your day here. If you got any questions, I'll be around all day.
Thanks, Robert. I guess just a little background about quail as I see it, my perspective. Quail here in this part of the state. When I think back as a child, there were a lot of wild birds. They were everywhere in the woods. Everywhere there was native habitat, there were birds. There were birds here, but there were birds everywhere. And it was something, we just accepted and kind of took it for granted. Something happened to the bird population. We hear all kind of stories about what it may have been. We have some animals now that we didn't have then. We didn't have coyotes then. We didn't have armadillos. We didn't have fire ants. We didn't have the little egret, what we call a cowbird. And we didn't have many hogs. I remember my dad, a lot of times we'd be in the woods and sometimes horseback, and he'd look on a cow trail and say, "Man, look at there, hog track, hog track. That's good." And if there was pig tracks there, he'd say, "Well, she's going to raise us some pigs. That's a sow with pigs." And so we've gone from that, a few hogs, to overpopulation of hogs. And you try to make correlations maybe between some of those animals becoming more abundant than they were and the quail going away. And I don't know really how much there is to any of that. My point is that the quail used to be here, and my interest in the birds here and everywhere is just kind of one from that perspective, where I saw them here as a child and a young man, and I feel like they should be part of the ecosystem that's here. I know it's possible because I saw it, and it was possible in range pastures like this with cattle there also. I think cattle grazing and quail management go together. Cattle and quail to me is not an if and or, it's, I think they're compatible. So that's kind of my, where I'm coming from. I don't feel like that we're doing anything super duper here, anything that probably others who are interested aren't doing. What we want to do is learn how to better manage these native pastures that are left to try to bring the quail back, just kind of in a general sense, because we think it's possible, because we saw it. So we're not claiming to really do anything right. We want to learn. We want to learn from the research and those of you who are doing the same thing, what we could do better here. I do want to say a really heartfelt thank you to Raoul and all of the extension people that have helped us for a long time. Robert and I talked about what our population was doing here. Was it going up or down? Sometimes you think you see fewer birds, or you see more birds than you have been, and you think, well, man, it's going one way or the other. You're happy if it's going up and not so much if it's going down, but we really never knew what it was doing. And we wanted to count the birds to quantify the population, and we talked to several people, and when we talked to Raoul, man, he accepted the challenge and really got us going on our first population count here. We are proud of that. We intend to use that as a baseline and continue to count annually. It was a covey count in the fall, and so we think with that we should truly be able to see what our population is doing, and hopefully correlate that change with things that are happening. We feel like we can control our burn program and our supplemental feed program, and we can control hunting pressure, and we can have some control on predators. And if we can make a correlation between those things and what a population is doing, maybe we can do better. So that's kind of where I think we're coming from. And I know Robert joins me in thanking Raoul and the extension people for helping us. Having said that, I will speak just a minute about this place. This property was bought in 1971 by Mr. Hugh Sharp from the Carlton family, and he bought it to hunt. He had hunted down just north of Boca Grande for I think most of his life, and that place became unavailable, and so he bought this place to bird hunt on and to hunt other things. He was a great steward of this property, and I think all of the places he owned, as his family has been since he passed away. And so the Sharp family certainly are good stewards, and they'd like to see their property, I think, managed in such a way that the ecosystem stays strong and sustainable into the future. Quail is just a part of that. So like Robert said, this property is 7,000 acres. It's kind of an L-shaped piece. The long leg of it runs east and west. This is Lily Avenue. It runs west from Lily 4.5 miles to the Manatee County line. And then close to the west boundary, it goes south into DeSoto for 2.5 miles. And it is 7,000 acres total. We do have a burn program we think has kind of evolved over the years. When my dad burned it, he was like most of those old-timey cattlemen. He was interested in burning for grass for the cattle and to control woody brush. He wasn't interested in burning a lot of little places. He wanted to come up here and burn as much as he could, as quick as he could, and go burn somewhere else. So he burned big fires. That worked great for the cattle. But I started to say we've been taught. I think we have learned that at least for quail, there is a great advantage to the birds on the edges between two burn sites. And you know, we think that there's more feed on the more recently burned side, and better cover on the one that has more growth on it. So the edge effect we think is an advantage, and for that reason we've divided the place up into 24 burn sites. It's kind of interesting to burn it sometimes. Our idea is to burn a place and leave a place and burn a place and leave a place and burn a place and leave a place. That's kind of what the two colors are, orange and green, are the two different burn sites. We're on a 2-year burn program. Half of the place is burned every year, or that is our plan, and it's dependent on weather. As Robert also mentioned, the circles are our listening sites for the covey count that we made in the fall, and I think the dots represent where we heard birds. I guess okay on the two different rounds, green dots and red dots. So that's kind of a glimpse of what our covey count was, and of the burn sites on the place. I'm about to cover everything that I wanted to. I once again will welcome all of you and say to you that, you know, we don't claim to have any kind of knowledge that everyone doesn't have. What we want to do is learn how to manage the habitat better for quail. We want to learn from you all, and we hope to be able to get support from Raoul and the Extension Service. We are thankful to them. I don't see Raoul now. I'm trying to hand it back.
I'm behind
over
him.
here. There he is. Well, I think we're
right now I've got a few people to introduce that are going to be working with us this morning, and if they could come a little forward, and that's going to be Greg. You have to come this way. Yeah, and Jeff Hodges. Where'd Jeff go? Jeff's hiding there. And Carlos, do you want to represent NRCS this morning as well? And also,
Dan, I will do that.
yeah, you can explain. And Betsy Boughton. So, Greg Hagen is from the Florida Wildlife Commission and is really the state quail biologist. Is that how you describe yourself? And so if you'd like to ask state questions and understand what the state is doing, Greg is a person to use today. Each one of these people is also going to have a stop at our tour this morning and explain a few things. Carlos and his team are from NRCS. They actually have a specific focus on quail and helping people on the land to manage quail and support that through programs. We'll talk about that. Betsy Boughton is from the Buck Island Ranch and manages their research program there. She also happens to be my wife, just so you know that. But the reason she is here has nothing to do with any of those relationships. Is she's a very, very good plant biologist. And whenever I come out here, Ken says, "What's this plant?" And I'm like, "Oh, I can probably get it to family for you, or genus, okay?" But Betsy should be able to tell you the species. So part of going around today is if you want to know something, and it's okay, sort of grab a little bit of it, or pull Betsy or myself aside, or even Greg, and we'll try and actually identify some of these species that you think are quail feed. We'll try and show you some of these quail food plants and some of the other aspects of vegetation that quail are interested in from a quail's perspective. The next part is to, and Jeff here, I almost forgot. So Jeff is from the National Bob White Conservation Initiative, and he's graciously come all the way down from Tennessee, correct?
Well,
Where did you come from?
Missouri.
You came from Missouri?
Yeah.
All right. They come from Missouri to talk about the National Bob White Conservation Initiative programs and what they're doing across the US on a broad scale and what they can do in Florida too.